Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. We're here in Phoenix in Arizona at ETSI NFV meeting number 8, and I'm talking with Bob Briscoe, who is Chief Researcher for Networks and Infrastructure at BT back home in London in the UK. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's talk about NFV and where it's come from suddenly from nowhere over the past 2 years. This is officially the end of phase 1 of the development of NFV. What do you think was achieved during it?
It's been quite incredible. We didn't have expectations that it would all go so well. We planned it to go this well, but it has gone swimmingly. The industry seems to now be working with NFV as if it's business as usual. You know, we've seen a few months ago a sea change inside BT, where before we were being evangelical, and then it was down to what do we have to do this? You know, it's just become part of the way the business has realised it's going to be operating, and we'd obviously laid down a lot of foundations internally, but I think this is not one of those things going to drop over the edge of a into a pool of despondency, as Gartner might say.
So it's real. Were your perceptions about NFV correct, and were your expectations met or even exceeded?
Yeah, I'm from research, as you said. I'm chief researcher, and we started out pushing this very much because it seemed to be very eminently doable. It wasn't really that radical. I mean, the implications were radical, but what you needed to do it was not. So we saw the main problem inside the company was all the operations and management complexity, and we saw technology from the compute side, from the cloud industry, that would both be able to, you know, we thought it would be able to do the performance we needed, we thought it would be able to do the security we needed. We wanted to investigate that, but at the same time, we wanted to just get that simplicity from the compute industry into the telecoms industry. That was really our aim. And although we're still only starting to standardise all that, we can see now that our vendors are engaged. You know, they want to do it, and that's a win. You know, it's
interesting. You should bring up immediately at the beginning of the interview the difference between the computing industry and the telecoms industry. It's been said that the computing industry obviously comes from a different background, but it's much quicker to accept change and to implement change rather than more than the traditional telecoms industry has been in the past. How difficult has it been to bring about that mind change and accept that change is needed and pretty quickly?
Yeah, it's as I say, while we were going through that evangelical phase, both within the company and externally, it wasn't that difficult, and that's partly because we've been emphasising this is really only an implementation change, and when you can tell people that they'll get like for like, but it will be faster to deliver, they're less worried. You know, it's not something that's changing your business model, unless you're a vendor, you know, but as an operator, it's saying, well, you can do the same things you're doing now, but faster, more agile, and then we can have the opportunities to also do new things and consolidate and bring things together. And so it's a way of doing things incrementally rather than a big bang. You know, yeah. Okay. And that allows conservatives to be a bit more happy with change.
Not too quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not so much not too quick, it's just not too radical. Yeah.
Right, so you can change quickly provided that the underpinnings don't change that quickly or remain substantially the same. Okay. You were involved in the security group, Bob, as far as NFE is concerned and as far as the ISG is concerned. Does that continue now? Is that complete, or does that hold?
Yeah, in fact, I convened it right at the start. I pulled it together. We saw, even before the NFE ISG was formed, the need for that, and I was appointed to pull that all together. I then passed the chairmanship on to Igor Feinberg from Alcatel-Lucent. But I've continued to have a strong role in setting the problem statement, which is now published, and we're done on that. and the group is going ahead, great guns, and is one of the two groups that is set up to continue for phase 2. We've been a very productive group. There's only a small number of us, so it's easier to be productive. You know, a dozen active people at any one time. Some of the characters have changed, but the sort of players moved on, if you like. And so it's been a good time for the security group. We're now moving into more detailed activities on data monitoring, on lawful interception, and those things we as a company are very happy that that's going on, because it's focusing on exactly the right things that need standardisation, and we can get on with some of the more proprietary sides of security separately. Yeah.
Okay. Before we move on to phase 2, you've been quite bullish about phase 1 and happy with it, but were there any disappointments or intractable problems that you came across during phase 1 that still need to be ironed out?
Yeah, there were. The internal processes weren't clear on how we coordinated between the working groups in the ISG. I mean, wider industry, we've had no problems working with our vendors. That's been fine. But if you're talking about phase 1 of the ETSI work, it was just never really clear what we were meant to do. We worked out informal ways of working with people and getting things done, but it wasn't clear that was what was meant to be happening.
So it was more of a workaround than...
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. But considering how quickly this came about, it's hardly surprising.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I don't think I'm aware of anything that's moved this fast and changed so much, you know. And I'm pleasantly surprised, but also I'm hopeful that it's not going to collapse. You know, it's one of those things where some people think it's on the top of a hype curve, but I don't think it's hype. It's doable, you know. Yeah.
Let's move on then to phase 2, which is what this meeting is all about. It's going to be finalised and ratified here in Phoenix. There are an enormous amount of work to do in 3 days. There's 38 work items at the moment on the agenda. They have got to be debated, discussed, prioritised, and put together in some kind of a list to say we're going to do this and then this and then this to build this. What are your hopes and expectations for phase 2?
Right, I'm not so worried about getting documents agreed this week. You know, that's something. There's been a lot of background work, and dealing with that much is going to be very much at a superficial level. You know, there's one or two low points. You know, where there's two groups of people both proposing to do the same thing that we've got to sort out, but otherwise fine. The hopes, I think, are more how this will work for the industry, and I see in particular the information model and the standardisation of the model of how you describe resources, how you describe the systems that you're trying to manage and orchestrate. That at the moment is where you know, that was our original goal, to get all that standardised so that each vendor was doing that in the same way. And I think that's now lined up to happen. You know, we're in good shape for that. So that's what I see. In 2 years' time, I imagine that will be set in stone. Yeah, and I'm hopeful.
It seems to me that the two main themes, or the two potential problems perhaps here, is first of all the nature of standardisation and how that's to be brought about. What are relations like with the burgeoning number of standards bodies that are now involved with NFV and SDN?
I think they're good. There's some bodies are getting frustrated. Partly this internal procedural problems we've been having have also been external procedural problems. It's not been clear how to liaise with other bodies. So there's been some bodies that have been going ahead on their own, and then there's been some, oh, you didn't ask us, and oh, we didn't ask you. But you know, that it's good people have been going ahead on their own because they've been getting on with stuff, and that needs doing. So for instance, when anyone sees a big industry initiative like this, they can further their own careers, if you like, by starting up a new group somewhere else, and that's fine, because that's all what we need. And those things get filtered out. I've seen things happening in TM Forum, which is all very useful activity going on for us, and they've been reviewing a lot of the ISG outputs and helping us. In the IETF, they've started 2 new working groups that have been, possibly the same people as here, but not necessarily through formal procedures. And it's a number of groups we've been liaising with. I've said I'm involved in the security group, but I'm also involved much more widely in getting those initiatives going. So that's good. Yeah.
Like the poor, the vendors will always be with us. But you're from an operator background. There are, 37 operators involved in this initiative. How are you all working together, and what do you think the operators are bringing to the party, and what are they asking for, demanding, requiring, that is different to what's happened in the past?
Right from the start, the operators have been talking with one voice. We have a Network Operators Council, met yesterday, and largely only having to deal with details. The general thrust of all the operators is the same, and I remember the very first NFE meeting, NFE ISG meeting back in January 2012, would that have been? Yeah. When I remember sitting down with some guys from a vendor with 5 letters, and they said, "We just can't get a fag paper between you. You're all talking with one voice. Have you been planning this?" And it's been like that. There's not been any disagreement between us. That's another incredible factor that's caused. I think that's what's caused the industry to move so fast on this, because clear requirements.
And what effect has it had on the vendors? Presumably they have sort of jumped to it. And
yeah, a lot of people, when this first started out, thought, "Oh, what is vendor with 5 letters going to think about this? That's going to break their business model, etc." But I think they have very quickly worked out how they can rework their product portfolios, and there's a new opportunity here. And so I don't think any of them were really trying to sell their proprietary hardware. They were selling their service, and they realised that, and that's what we need. And so there's money to be made. You just have to change how you make it. And I'm not belittling the change they've made. It's not just been superficial, but it has been much more about standardisation. It's been much more about standardisation across vendors.
Can you tell us anything about BT's involvement in proofs of concept of NFE?
Yeah, we've tended not to get too involved with the public proofs of concept that are going on. We have a number of field trials in various stages of planning and execution going on with our product lines in BT. We've, as I said, I'm from research. We've tended not to do, other than the original first one we did back in 2011, we've tended not to push too many proofs of concept from research. So it's mainly our product lines that are doing the proofs of concept and the field trials, and we've been helping them do that. And I think that's helped as a company. By us not doing it, it's made the product lines move faster. And I think if we'd have done it ourselves inside the company as research, it would have been a sort of, I don't know, there was a children's book called The Wizard Who Lost His Magic. And if you all rely on the wizard, yeah, when he loses his magic,
that's it.
That's it. Whereas what we've been doing is moving forward, so that or holding back so that the company can move forward, and that's worked very well inside BT. But we're keeping our powder dry as regards announcing all that. But it's very much going on. And we have, I think, no, I can't say the number, but it's well into double digits of field trials going on. Yeah.
Thank you. Last question to you. We have to wrap in a minute, but I'd just like to ask you about pressure points, pain points that are now coming up. As you sort of solve problems in one area, Everybody knows you know from your own body and aches and pains that they tend to reappear somewhere else. A thing that's been talked about recently is the fact that BSS and OSS needs to catch up with this pretty quickly because it's going to become the next bottleneck. Do you think that's the case, and if so, what are you doing about it?
Inside the company, our OSS people are right onto this. They were the first ones onto it. And it's very natural for them. Virtualization is something they've been working with. You know, they're more from the compute background anyway. So I don't think that's a problem. Whether it is in other companies, I don't know. But in BT, certainly we've been seeing that. And you can see we have a very strong relationship with the TM Forum, and our relationship with them inside the company and them moving on NFV has meant that everything seems to be going very well. So there's been no resistance on that front at all, and I wouldn't have expected it. So that's working well. Yeah.
Okay then, Bob Briscoe, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.